When it comes to Sins of the Ride, in many ways it can feel like your generic light-skinned person go crazy type of film, but with said character, they do something different that might be appealing to you. So to summarize the movie, Greg, Cassie, and Jack have been friends for at the very least 8 years, lived together for 8 years, and from what it seems, Greg and Jack have been friends since maybe middle school, maybe high school, around the time when, unfortunately, Greg's mom died. And when it comes to Jack, when it comes to Greg, he is very close to Jack and Cassie, almost to the point where it feels like he's a little bit of a boundary pusher, but they love him. They know he's a bit weird, but he's that kind of weird where to other people, like Cassie's friend Ariel, red flag, but for Cassie and Jack, it's just Greg. But as Jack and Cassie get to the point where they're in a relationship, they want to get married and, have some alone time, this is a little bit tricky for Greg, and it leads him to have some separation anxiety that makes him from, weird but, harmless to weird and potentially dangerous. So, getting to the review section. One of the things we appreciate when it comes to Greg as the almost generic light-skinned crazy person is that unlike a lot of those characters who we usually see, Greg isn't a stranger, somebody new into the lead couple's life. Greg has been part of Jack's life for at least 10 years. For Cassie, he's been in her life almost 10 years. And not only that, they're not just casual friends they sometimes see at work or whatever. They live together. So there's this thought that they're fully aware who Greg is, how weird he can be, and they've come to accept him, figure out how to form a three-way dynamic, and with that, it makes him going nuts. Something a little bit more complicated, even to the point of wondering what will he do, and will he actually take it as far as you expect because of how a lot of these films seem. And just the potential that this may go somewhere different, even though for the most part it follows the same beats that you're used to, I appreciate just the idea of it not becoming something that's like background noise or something that you have on while you're doing something else. But it's something that you kind of have to keep your eye on just to see what's going to happen, especially because Greg isn't the type who just snaps one day. He's a boundary pusher. He's the type that wants to get up in your face and all that and see what he can do and what he can get away with or not, to the point where you're like, is he going to go full on crazy, or he's just going to rub them the wrong way to the point where they have to cut him off. And then with that, either he'll go crazy, he'll disappear, may have this mad moment, and then he fails, and then it sets up a sequel. There's so many ways that when this film really starts off, you kind of question where it can go, and I appreciated that. With that said, while there's a lot put into Greg in terms of effort, in terms of performance and writing, everybody else, not so much. Like, for example, the main relationship between Cassie and Jack, there are issues there that don't fully get addressed, and that kind of bugs me, especially since when the movie starts, they're like a day off from the wedding, and it seems both of them have wedding jitters, both of them kind of questioning things, and Cassie's even to the point of questioning if Jack will leave her at the altar. Add in that in an undisclosed amount of time with them being together, there was a year break where he was dating a whole other woman, and it's not really clear what led to those two breaking up. Well, it's said in that movie, but it's not clear if it wasn't for that factor that broke them up, if maybe they would have stayed together. And then you factor in Ariel, who doesn't really like Greg or Jack, so she's not like she's somebody who has an interest in Greg, but he's all up into Jack and Cass's relationship. She don't like none of them, so a part of you is kind of like interested in what are these dynamics and what are these characters outside of Greg. Because it seems so much is about reacting to what Greg did or didn't do, or how he is as a person, that you don't really get to know these other people besides them having little facts about them that, because it's not really built up upon, you kind of forget. And I would even say when it comes to some of those things, you may start wondering, is that something that Greg said, or was that something they said about Greg? Because that's how big of a character Greg is compared to everybody else who honestly don't even feel like part of an ensemble, but almost supporting characters. Overall, though, with Greg having a different origin path and a different kind of crazy, I feel like there's a need to appreciate what was done with that character when it comes to Sins of the Bride. However, when it comes to making it so that as individuals you care about Cassie, you care about Jack, you care about Ariel, or even their relationships outside of Greg, unfortunately, that's not really tapped into. And in some ways, to be fair, how many of these movies really care about the characters beyond their reaction to the one who's crazy? But I mean, if you can do something different when it comes to Greg, I feel like you can do something different with the rest of the characters too, to be fair.